So our next speaker is Garik, and I don't even know how to introduce him. For those of you that know Garik, he is a character, one of the most amazing individuals I've ever met. I had the chance to spend a week with him at Leadership over summer. He's fought sharks. He's, I don't know, climbed tall towers, leaped mountains in a single bound. It'll speak for himself when you hear him talk. So, without further introduction, Garik Sadovy.
Wow, that was pretty awesome. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I was sitting right up in the front, and I assumed that they were performing for the cameras. So it looked like I had this 6-girl cheering squad just going, "Go Garik, go Garik!" So I'm just going to take a couple seconds and imagine that image is all of you. All right, okay. Feel free to cheer if you would like. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be in front of you tonight. When they told me that they wanted me to speak last at this conference, it was kind of like you have a great topic to kind of wrap up, give everyone, this impetus to go out and think, do, and make. But I had the sneaking suspicion that it might have had something to do with my title. The title of my talk is LSD Changed My Life. And when I was thinking about this, if some people wanted to leave a little bit early, scanning down the titles of talks, it's like, I might be able to skip a couple of, whoa, LSD changed my life. I think I'm going to stick around for that one. Well, I apologize to anyone who really expected a far-out talk, but LSD actually stands for something else, and I'll go ahead and get that out of the way. Sometimes when I'm wearing my LSD Changed My Life t-shirt at organic food markets, I get a lot of great comments. But that aside, this evening I'm very grateful for the opportunity to just tell you the story of a couple boys who were kind of dissatisfied and questioned the things that they were doing. The story of a secluded classroom on East Campus here at NC State where 17 students pondered life for college credit, and what lifestyle design, there you go, that's LSD, lifestyle design. What lifestyle design might mean for university education in the future, especially as we confront limited resources here at NC State and at other institutions. So I'm going to begin with something that I like to call the Great Depression of 2009. It had nothing to do with the economic crisis, though I'm sure that inspired in other people the same kind of depression, but it was a personal depression for me. It was a period in my life where, having gone to college and having been put on this very straight path of, you're going to be a great engineering student, you're going to make a great living and have a family, get a house, all these wonderful things, all of a sudden that didn't mean that much to me. And in my mind, when I think back to those times, I can't even remember color in my life. Things were just taking a very, very strong turn for the worse. Relationship troubles. I lost one of the most important members of my family, my grandfather. And just during that time, I was questioning why I wanted to do the things that I wanted to do and why I was here in the first place. It was an incredibly professional, ethical, and personal breakdown. And like any of these breakdowns, it occurred at a very, very inopportune time. So to fight this, because they have a phrase for that, it's angsty teen, and I didn't really want to be an angsty teen. So to fight this, I did what Dr. Steer suggested, was that I just filled my head with as much as I could, attempting to answer these philosophical questions for myself. My bookshelf was littered with paperback novels about environmentalism, about travel, world conflict, nutrition, exercise, anything I could get my hands on. At one point, in my lust for knowledge, I even went to the public library and got a huge stack of all those Make Your Love Life Better books, everything that people are so embarrassed to go and pick them up. Well, I was really curious, so I faced a little bit of embarrassment myself, but I learned a lot. It was at that time that I met Jeff Huber, not at the library, but Jeff Huber, who talked earlier today. And in talking to each other, we found that we were kind of in the same place. We were both engineering students, questioning what we were doing at the university, what we were doing with our lives. And together we engaged in this very introspective quest, and through conversations that sometimes lasted 4 hours, through him giving me literature to read and me giving him interesting things about my more than eccentric lifestyle, we built this relationship that allowed us to build that idea, that ideal, that image that we were searching for in our education. So I came to a point where I realized, if Jeff and I are interested in this kind of thing, why aren't other people? I mean, why isn't it part of our education to have answers to these questions? And I proposed something really crazy. I'm one of those lone nut guys, and I wanted to pull in someone else on this. So I asked Jeff, why don't we teach a class on this? And this was over Christmas break, and he was like, haha, yeah, okay, all right, whatever. I didn't really expect that, I can't imagine that he actually believed me or expected that it would go through, which was a terrible mistake on his part, because he then left for Denmark, and about 2 months later, I Skyped him and I said, Jeff, I'm going to need you to Skype back in a couple of hours. We're presenting our class curricula to the honors program. And I imagined that I crushed all of that happiness that Jeff had been learning about in Denmark, because I had just signed him up for something that was an incredibly strenuous obligation. And we ended up getting the course curricula approved. We sent an email out to all the students who signed up for the class, telling them to buy Tim Ferriss's copy of the 4-Hour Workweek, which I had read over the break and done amazing things with. And we went off our own ways over the summer and came back to NC State that fall, fresh, green, walked in the classroom, ready to teach Honors 398 Lifestyle Design. And I don't know about you, but that's kind of a bold move to suggest that I, 20 years old at the time, was worthy of being a professor that could teach about life, right? How many people in here feel that they're experts on life? No one. No one is raising their hand. Well, okay, when I was planning this talk, I wondered, what if everyone raises their hand? Well, yeah, I guess you would be much more competent than Jeff or I to teach this class. But that's the same way that we felt. I mean, who are we to stand up and talk about life to all these students? And the conclusion that we came to was that we are people who have been through this this method of answering these questions. We have a model for which we strive to create purpose and meaning in our life. And it's that model, it's that process that we have that we can give to other people. It's all those resources that we can share. It's that knowledge that we've acquired. So we felt bolstered by this ideal, and we designed the class such that we weren't just instructors, we weren't just professors or people disseminating information, but that our class members would be doing the same thing as well. Instead of tests, we assigned these large case studies in which students would go out and research something that they were passionate about, they were interested in. We had people research natural cures to headaches. I used that as soon as I came out of class every day. We had people look at meditation. We had people look at sleeping. We had people look at what does it mean to be creative in dance. All these students pursuing so many different divergent topics. And there were a number of things that we learned. The first being that this method of pursuit was incredibly important for our class, and it was important to have a model. And Jeff really liked models, so we created a model that we could work from. We started off with hitting students with the big idea. So, what is an unconventional lifestyle, or conversely, what does a conventional lifestyle look like? And we had this great wheel of pictures, and it started off with a little baby, and when you're in middle school, you play World of Warcraft, and when you're in college, you drink a lot of beer and eat wings, and then maybe you get a job, you get an internship, you get some money, marry someone, and at some point, maybe you join a golf club, you retire, and then you die. And at each different stage, we had this kind of a divergent way of thinking. So we ended up pulling a lot of stories from TED at each different stage of a person's conventional life, where someone had gone and thought unconventionally. So Ross Savage, who quit her job and rowed across all the oceans. John Casanona, who faced discrimination and wildlife loss in his Namibian homeland, who established a economically changing conservancy program. all of these things we felt would inspire students to something greater. And after we hit them with the big picture, we prompted them to think about their life philosophy and their purpose. We wrote eulogies for ourselves. We did values continuum exercises. We wrote so many things in that class that, all the assignments that students were sending me, I barely had time to read them all while I was also dealing with my other coursework. And after that, after they had built their philosophy and their purpose, we then confronted them with the more practical aspect of it. So goal setting, what do you actually want to do? I mean, now that you've defined yourself, what are you going to do about it? And in that goal setting, we prompted them to be actionable about it, set steps that they would undertake as soon as they walked out of the classroom. And then we moved in on the case studies, more direct information. We had lectures about travel. We had lectures about entrepreneurism. We had lectures about nutrition and exercise, and helping students develop these concepts of things that they could do in their everyday life. And at each step, we would prompt our students to think, well, think in terms of your schedule. How much can you fit in? What can you optimize? What can you eliminate? It was truly this life-changing thing. And at one point, right at the beginning, actually, we were seriously questioned by one of the students in our class who took a concept that was very important to the 4-Hour Workweek, our textbook, and basically said, I'm a sophomore in college. I love to weld. That's really what I want to do. This 40-hour a week to 4 hours a week thing, I mean, I would want to spend 40 hours a week welding. That's what I want to do. Why should I care about your class? And I remember I was standing at the front of the like, whoa, I don't know what to say here. And Jeff hit it first, but he said to this student, that you're actually way ahead of the class. You've already figured out what you want to do. Kudos. And we then moved on and prompted, well, it's not all about welding, right? I mean, there's probably other things you wanted to do. And by the end of the class, he had come back to something that he had wanted to do a long time ago, which was play professional golf. He was actually an incredibly good golf player, and created this plan for us where he said, like, I'm going to become a professional golf player. And sitting around the table, it was like, whoa, that's actually reasonable. You could, why didn't you tell us this before? Like, why aren't you a pro golf player? And that story sounds incredible, but it wasn't unique. And that was kind of probably the main point that I took from teaching this class, is that all of these stories that we were telling, these had tangible value beyond anything that the material wealth or the knowledge that we were being given in our other education, our primary university education, was putting on us. And it was these stories that kind of facilitated the group bonding. And the best lectures were the ones where we just basically told stories to each other. I remember the travel lecture and the entrepreneur lecture specifically, where Jeff talked about freezing his butt off in Copenhagen, and I talked about avoiding lethal ice cyclones in Croatia. We had students talking about doing wildlife research in Maholo, South Africa. A girl who had skydived in New Zealand. God, I wish I could have done that. But all of these stories that people were telling, it was inspiring students. And I got text messages coming out of the classroom from my students saying, wow, what a great lecture. Like, I really want to do something now. I really want to go out and kind of change my life. And that really, to me, I thought, we probably have something here. This is something that, I've never really seen a precedent for that before. And I wanted to make sure that this would pass the test, right? So we use the metric that every other university class uses, the class evals, fighting apathy of students at universities across the nation. And I didn't really know what to expect. Like, would students fill out these class evaluations? Would we get any feedback at all? Would this, continue in the future? Would students tell us that we were terrible? Was our class valuable at all? And it surprised us to find that not only did we get the numerical evaluations back in, having beaten the department average for the honors program in every single category, but we also got text evaluations from a number of the students, including some students who said, hey, I want to teach this class next year. And at that point, we thought, there is really something to this. The students want this. The students need this. This is a part of our education that has gone underappreciated. So what does this mean? What does lifestyle design mean in the context of universities? If a class about life of this nature is so important, then what do we do with it in the future? And as Kelly mentioned before, this university is facing some pretty amazing budget cuts, and we're going to have to make some serious changes in the near future. When I first heard about the budget cuts, the address from the chancellor was up on a projector screen in a class taught by one of my more eccentric professors, and he played this message from the chancellor, and essentially after it was done, came back up to the front of the class and said, "Yeah, you know, it's true. In my day, we would have firebombed the administration building, but you guys, you've got your priorities." And then I went and firebombed the administration. No. But I said to myself, we really do have our priorities as students, as an institution that is giving out information, that is training people for vocations, that is encouraging people in academic pursuit. But are these really the priorities that are important to us? What is lifestyle design? What does this class mean in the context of the priorities that are important? And I find that in so many of my classes, I'm completely dispassionate. One of my professors last semester stood up in front of the class at the beginning of the class and said, I don't know why I'm teaching this. You can read all this in a book. I actually don't know anything about this. I'm having to learn it, but here we are. And okay, I'll teach this class. And I checked out at that point. I mean, I went to the class, but I just sat in the back and doodled or something. But all this dispassionate feeling towards my education has caused me to lose a lot of what should be valuable. I mean, if I get a degree from NC State, I should expect that I learned something, right? But I've forgotten so much of it. But I guarantee that if you match education, if you match knowledge with passion, with purpose and meaning, then you'll remember what it was that you learned. And what if there was a department on this campus? What if there was a department of purpose, or a department of the meaning of life? It was completely run by students. They chose their own professors amongst the students, and it was a highest honor to become a professor of the meaning of life. And it was completely operated. They chose their own classes and expected a variety of different things. And it was truly a student-led revolution, because operating under limited resources, this university and universities across the nation are trying to add value to our degrees. And these skills, telling stories, relating to people, being interesting, I mean, that's the greatest value add of all. I'm not going to give you a job if you just bore the hell out of me. No. If you know how to tell your story, if you know what you want to do, if you can display some kind of meaning behind what you're learning, that is the true value add. So this isn't really about university education. I mean, that's kind of what I'm trying to change. But this is kind of about all of us, really. This is about just our lives in general. And this is about the stories that we tell to each other and what we can make of those lives, how we see meaning in each other. The great G.K. Chesterton, a man who was so great that I'm considering referring to myself as G.C. Sadovy, once said that this world will never starve for want of wonders, but for want of wonder. And when we know how to tell our story, when we know where we come from and where we're going, we catch that wonder. And this is something that really binds us all together. It's something that I believe in, I truly believe in, and something that my generation can believe in. And when we move through this world, we will inspire others as those who have come before us inspired us, and as we can inspire those who come after. And what we truly leave behind is nothing but our stories and stardust. Thank you.